Nobbs, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about the Marathon Project and how it is no longer beautiful, sunny weather and 25 degrees. Yeah, I think that's what we're talking about.
I
All
think we're
right,
also talking about how you ran 212.
Oh
uh,
yeah, that part
let's
too.
bury the lead. Let's start with the big hard-hitting news. What was the time?
Yeah, 2:12:27.
Yep.
2:12:27.
Yeah. Which
So,
that was kind of the whole plan. I think it's still settling in afterwards. That happened, and that's how it went, and everything like that. But definitely for a long time, if you said, yeah, you're going to be running 3:07s for 42K, I don't know if I would have thought that was possible. So yeah.
and we're going to cover a lot of different things today, but I guess why don't we start with a very high-level overview of the marathon project, the weekend, the race course itself. Let's set the stage for anyone listening that maybe has never heard of the marathon project. If they weren't following along with your guys' YouTube series, they don't know the way in which this course was laid out and designed to be flat and fast. So maybe you can, Tom, start off walking us through some of that, and then we can always have Brant hop in at some point.
Yeah. I think it's pretty interesting. I think comparing to previous experiences, I do prefer when you're kind of just treated as this I don't know, this like puppy that just follows along. It's like, the elite coordinators like be here at this time, here's your meals and all that stuff. So I think in terms of the whole event, it was very efficient, it was well run. I think a couple times when we were going to the location for package pickup, it was like a little bit different for the Gold Wave. Like they had to go to one location, we had to go to the Sheraton and trying to figure that out. But in the end, it was pretty simple. It was all like in this one compact sort of location for everything that we needed. So yeah, I really appreciated that, and I think whatever is the simplest overall setup always is favorable, just to reduce stress. And just allow you to sort of focus on, the job at hand or, stuff like that. I also appreciate when we don't have to walk around as much. I know I was telling you guys, like, whatever's the least amount of walking, like that's that's the go-to. So yeah.
Yeah. And why don't you share a little bit about the design of the course? Like it's not an out and back. You don't have to be shuttled to the start line, run from point to one direction. So what does the marathon project course look like?
Yeah, I've done like a looped course. Like we did that at Project 13.1. So I know like kind of what that felt like. And I really appreciated like everything that they did in terms of the design. I think it seemed a lot bigger when I was racing it. On beforehand, I was like, I don't know, like, is this going to be mind numbing? Is this going to be like a bunch of turns? But no, it was pretty perfect. The hairpin turns or like the teardrop turns that they had were really efficient, really effective. I don't feel like they slowed down pace at all. And so yeah, no, I was very very impressed as a whole, start to finish. I think Brant and I were saying like maybe starting 15 minutes earlier would be optimal. I think most professional marathons still have a dedicated start time, sometimes of 7 a.m. So I think that would be appreciated for future events. But yeah, no, it was awesome. They had lots of spectators out there, and yeah, it was really great.
And I guess, Brant, from your perspective as the coach, and obviously this was a decision that you and Tom made collaboratively, but why is it that you guys chose the marathon project? What was it that stood out to you both about this race, and why did you decide this is where we're going to go to take our big swing?
Yeah, there was lots of reasons this year. I think, for us in Canada, Waterfront Marathon is the Canadian champs. But we knew there'd be a decent amount of guys there, and we wanted something a little bit later. We were initially looking to try to get into Chicago. We've since discovered it's pretty hard to get into the big ones without a super fast PR. So we were like, okay, we'll have this one in the back pocket in case Chicago doesn't work out. And then we didn't get into Chicago, and we weren't sure at first because there wasn't a lot of guys in and around the 2-ish 12 range first. And so I remember Tom being like, okay, they got this guy. Okay, they got this guy. I was like, okay, good. We got some people here, right? And then we found out there were pacers. So we locked in on this one. And I thought the idea for him to be able to make that jump, because what we're battling right now is getting into the bigger races, right? So, knowing that we had a near perfect setup to try and get into the 211s, 212s, to be able to have that time to go to some of the races, be like, hey, look, I've run, 212. Can I get a bib and bottles? Like, not even travel. We just want a bib and bottles at this point. So if the big races are listening, which I doubt they are, but we just want a bib and bottles, right? And so that was a big process for this. We also, I'm not a fan of running the same marathon multiple times early in your career. I think it's really good to be on different courses, different people, because I don't like marathoning is really hard at every level, but at this level in particular, weather conditions, competition, fields, etc. And so just trying to remove a little bit of the comparison trap for Tom as well too. So we've done Philly, Toronto, and now Marathon Project. And it's not to say that we won't go back to any of those. There is a very high likelihood we're going to race Toronto at some point. It is a Canadian champ. So in 2027 or 2028, yeah, give or take, we're probably going to have to run that at some point. And so I didn't want to be like stacking them back to back to back to back to back was part of it. And then knowing what Ben and his team had set up at the Marathon Project during kind of the COVID lockdown years and seeing the effects that had on performance. And it was like, okay, well, let's do this. And it was like, who else or who doesn't want to go to Arizona in the middle of a crappy Canadian winter? So that was kind of all of it for us. Probably a little bit more, but that's probably all I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, Tom, does that kind of sound about right? Like just why you guys selected this race in particular?
Yeah, yeah. I think we were hoping CIM was like an opportunity, but they've obviously got this US champs focus now. So I guess that's sort of unfortunate, but I'm sort of grateful that that was the case. Marathon Project is a world athletics qualifier, or it does matter towards Canadian rankings in particular. So I think that was really cool. And yeah, I think it was definitely like a smaller setting. Like I was almost saying to you guys, that ahead of the race, it was like, oh, like this feels like so so low key, so chill, because like I'm not seeing like thousands and thousands of bodies like rolling into the expo. And I think that's almost like another thing that you can just control for, minimize in terms of stress, and just focus on the job at hand. Now, maybe in the last two laps, I would have loved to have had more bodies screaming at me. But otherwise, yeah, it was exactly what we needed. So yeah.
Yeah. I know you guys have covered a lot of your training in the YouTube series, so I don't want to, rehash too much of that. But how did this training cycle feel in comparison to Philly to Toronto? Now you're preparing for your third marathon. How did this one feel in comparison?
Yeah, I'd say almost comfortable in a sense. I think that nothing was too far out of reach, and maybe that's what it should feel like. I distinctly remember actually listening to Marty here, who won the Marathon Project in 2020, listening to his interview, and he said something along the lines of that, like nothing is too far out of reach. They're not overextending themselves. It's not these insane sessions that sort of make you into the marathoner that can take it on the day. It's sort of the culmination of all the little things. And I think Brent and I, over the last 20 weeks, I feel like there was no stone left unturned. And I think if we even extend that past into this whole year, has sort of been working on weaknesses and then setting it up so that by the time we got to the main build, I feel like it would be hard to fail. So um, yeah, I think it was pretty simple. We knew what to do, where to go with, and I'm really excited to use this as kind of like not a template, but sort of a basis, or like sort of like ground zero of like what we know we can come back to in the future. I don't know. That's my take. Maybe Brent has some other wild and creative things cooked up, but yeah.
No, I think you're right. Like, if you study the marathon and you watch, you see a lot of people like flash in the pan. They come out, they have one good marathon, and then they're DNFs or not making it to the lines, etc. Right? And when you're working with people, the goal is always to have them progressing. Now, is that always going to be the case? No. Obviously, life happens, but you want to stack the deck in your favor when it comes to this stuff. And so for you, we've always talked about, like, even, Project 13.1. Okay, let's try some things there. And if they go well, we can carry them over to the fall marathon. And the summer, we're going to practice things. And so the goal is, and you've had this like great progression, like 219, 215, 212, right? Over the last 3 years, literally 3 years plus 2 weeks, I think 3 weeks. And so that's the goal, is how do we keep evolving to drop time off? So you're not this guy who goes and runs here and then DNF and then here and then DNF, or DNF, not good, not good, not good, right? And I think when you work through it that way and you're not overreaching, like you talk about, like, Marty talking about, it makes it easy to go to that line and be confident, because you're not thinking back to your last one. Did we do enough? Did I do this? Did I DNF? Am I overreaching? Am I cooked, etc.? So, my goal for you is just to be able to have you get to the line and go, I just got to execute what I know I'm capable of, and the result will take care of itself. And I think I felt that being around you that weekend, where, not that it was like inevitable that you were going to run well, but there was no like, oh shit, I don't know, is this gonna go well kind of thing, right? Like,
Mm,
even from the beginning, like, of the race, it was just like boom, 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 boom. It was like, all right, he's gonna run well, no problems, let's go.
yeah.
And Tom, you said something a minute ago, and maybe Brant, you can comment on this, but you said, you guys kept this build pretty simple. And to people listening that see your mileage, see the workouts you do, they might be like, what the heck are you talking about? Simple. And there's this quote that I love. It's like, simple doesn't mean easy, right? A lot of the stuff you do might not be easy for the average runner, the average marathoner. But Brant, like, what was your approach? And I know there probably was some collaboration involved, but what was your approach to this build with Tom?
Yeah, it was very collaborative. Like, we go back and forth a lot on seeing what different people are doing, how he's feeling. Like, I mean, everybody who watched the series, if you haven't, you should go back. You got to see us like debrief nearly in real time about workouts. And so the approach for this build really was, we know Tom can do volume. That's not a problem. He's durable, stable. He runs the correct efforts, 9.9910 out of 10 times. And so it was really, can we add a bit more intensity into this build on top of the higher volume? And we learned he handles that really well. Like, I think we had one session that was like, right? And the rest of them, it was like all good. And so, okay, we know that he handles both those things well. So cool. That doesn't mean we're going to go stack a bunch more intensity in the next build. If anything, we'll probably do a bit more volume, but there will be more intensity basis moving forward. I think moving forward also probably going to have to work on 5K, 10K, and half marathon as well too. So we actually haven't planned out what 26 will look like yet. We have some rough ideas that we're throwing darts at, but I think that's all part of it. We learned from this one that, Tom carries over very well from his half marathon ability to his marathon ability. And not a lot of people do that. Like, if you look at US trials as a data set in particular, there's many people who make a US trials qualifier off the half marathon who can't convert it to the marathon. And Tom actually converts it to the marathon really well, which tells us a couple of things. He has a lot of aptitude for it, but also if we get him faster in the under stuff, he's probably going to convert that over as well too. So that was a lot of good data pulled from this that we can use going forward.
Were there any, and you guys can both answer this, I'll let you decide who goes first, but were there any moments during the build where, Tom, you felt like something was clicking, that maybe felt in a way it hadn't in Philly, in Toronto, or just gave you that extra boost of confidence going into the marathon project, that like, I'm ready to run this time, etc.?
Yeah. Well, I think a number of things have clicked, like just along the way. I think I felt like, certain times, especially working on the halftime, in previous years, it just felt like I was just running into the same brick wall repeatedly over time, and I just wanted to break 64 like so badly. And I feel like even just like that sort of like little mental barrier coming down, and running under 64, and then running 63 low, I think that gave me like a pretty big surge of confidence. and then just like, having sort of the evidence that we've done the work, we've done the mileage. And then I think it started to really translate. Let's see, we did a workout that was like, I think it was something like 20 or 25 minutes of tempo and then like 8 by a K or 10 by a
Hmm.
K. We did that before one of the halves.
Yeah.
And I just remember that workout was just like, I was like, that's got to be one of the greatest workouts in my life. Like, I was like, it just like kept going better. And I was like, even though I was like pushing paces like down to 10K pace for the Ks, and I'm pretty sure I was supposed to be doing tempo, but that was just like, I was just like, I felt like God. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, and then I think there was like we did a classic like 30 workout. So like 30 minutes easy, 30 minutes marathon, 30 minutes easy, 30 minutes marathon, 30 minutes easy. And I think that workout, honestly, each year it's gotten progressively easier. I think at the first time I did it before Philly, like that crushed me. Um, like that the last 30 minutes I was like literally hobbling. And so coming into it this year, it was like wow, that was like within my control. I could pick it up on the easy sections in between each of the hard sections. And I don't need to run close to what I feel is like the goal marathon pace, but it was cold, it was windy, and I was like hitting 308s, 309s, and I was like wow, like that's within like a second of what I think is my dream marathon pace. And I don't think you have to do that within a build. You can be a few seconds off and still race much better than all your training paces for the marathon specific work. But that workout in particular, I was just like, oh, okay, like I think this is this could be something. At that moment, it was like still like a few weeks out, like 6, 7 weeks out, but I was like, okay, we just have to not fuck it up between now and then. And yeah, just kind of keep checking the boxes.
What about you, Brant? Obviously, you get a little email notification every single time one of Tom's runs syncs through the platform. So you get almost instant access to his quantitative data. But just based on the relationship you guys have, you're also talking about the qualitative. You talk through how it feels. What was the effort? So was there anything, and it doesn't have to be one thing, was there more than one thing that stood out about this build that you're like, oh yeah, like he's ready to roll. He's on a different level.
Yeah, I'd say in the last 2 years, 3 years, really since we started the marathon, Tom's intensity discipline and intensity control has gotten a lot better. And so when I saw him reporting, seeing 308s, 309s, 310s, 311s in rough conditions, because we're only 2 hours apart, like driving to get there. So I know the conditions pretty well. And he's going like, oh, that was easy. I'm like, oh, all right. Well, I trust him because he's been nailing the intensity. So it was like this whole time I was like, yeah, like, and I think I said to you, Elaina, maybe the day before, I was like, I wouldn't be shocked if he goes 210 high, 211.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about how I think that
Yeah.
actually would have happened here in a little bit. But yeah, like the whole build, it was like, oh, he's reporting great RPEs, great intensity control. He's nailing workouts. His volume's up. His confidence is high. It was like, all right, well, I don't see any reason from a quantitative or qualitative side why we're not going to go out and crush this. So I thought it was fun. It was an easy build on my end for sure.
Okay, let's actually fast forward to the race weekend itself, because again, I know you guys have covered the build at length in your YouTube series, but I just wanted to dive a little bit back into that for maybe those who hadn't listened to it. Maybe now this will incentivize them to go back and listen to those previous episodes. But for both Brant and Tom, and again, one of you can hop in first. What was the goal heading into this race, both in terms of pacing, execution, time, etc.?
Yeah, I think yeah, just trying to see what the group would be like. Honestly, if I've learned anything over the last few marathons is that, pros especially will make some very bold claims and they won't be able to back it up and walk the walk. And I'm not gonna lie, a lot of American guys, they will shoot their shot in the first like half of the race and then fade dramatically. Or most American guys that I see will just hang behind the pacer and try to do the least amount of work possible. Um, and so I was honestly just like kind of trying to run my own race. Like once I realized that the pacer was we had a pacer at 2:12. Like we figured that out in the technical meeting. And then once I figured out in the race, like, hey, this pacer's actually like doing a good job keeping us on pace, then I just kind of like let the race sort of take its course and just follow the effort. But most of the time I wanted to run my own race and just see like where things end up by the last 10K or so. That was kind of the end goal there. We did have a solid pack of guys at the 2:12 range. I really wish, going into it, maybe I could have just seen like, hey, who are those guys trying to run 2:12? Like technical meeting, like raise of hands, like who's trying to go out? Because I've seen that at previous races too, where people try to indicate what their kind of their goal is. Just so you have like sort of like a mental note of like this guy, this guy, this guy. These are the guys that I should be tracking and working with. Um, but uh, but yeah, even even a friend of mine, Thomas Broach, at one point he told me he was going out with the 2:10 group, and then he just sat behind me for the entire race until he wasn't. So
Yeah.
it's hard to trust people. Everyone's got their own race nerves and stuff that they're dealing with. So you kind of just have to see how it plays out in the end.
Yeah. And sometimes people's plans can change last minute too, right? As you
Mm.
said, like maybe planning to go with the 210 group and then deciding the morning of to go with the 212 group. So Brant, question for you, because you mentioned you had pretty high confidence that on the right day, the right conditions, Tom could go 210 high, 211 low, recognizing there was a sizable 210 pace group and also a 212 group. And I mean, I would have to specifically look back through photos, but from my recollection, the 210 pace group was actually bigger than the
Oh yeah.
212 group. What was your and Tom's decision or like, what was that conversation like to be like, hey, let's go with the 212 group and not the 210 group?
Yeah, I mean, Elaina, you know this joke. I think Tom's, I've told you this before too, but it's like there's confidence pacing and there's reality pacing.
Mhm.
And I think that it is far less likely that somebody will go off of what we would like jokingly call confidence pacing and end up running really well. And so for anybody who was watching the Marathon Project on FlowTrack or sees the photos afterwards, I think it was like 15 or 17 people in the 210 group.
It was
And I think
huge.
five in the 212 group, four or
Mhm.
five, give or take, including the pacer. And I think Nobbs is the only one from the 212 group that ran in the 212s, and he finished 11th. And we're
Mhm.
not even talking about the 208 group that had like five guys, maybe three plus pacers in there, right? And so I think for it was an easy decision, honestly. Like if you look at the best marathoners, very rarely do they go out at something that's like borderline achievable and then hang on. So even if you look at like JP who won, right?
Mhm.
So it was like Chalimo was up there with the Pacers, and I can't remember the who's the guy who made the big move. No, you know who he
Adrian.
is. Adrian, yeah. So Adrian makes this big move at like 32K to drop Chalimo, right? And we're like, oh man, this kid's got it. Like it's over, right? And literally, like Elaina, you were with me, Nobbs. I don't know if you know this. So we walked from like the Hoka area down to the finish line. It's like 600 meters,
Mhm.
700 meters. And the announcer guy was like basically in front of us walking. And the Adrian guy had this huge lead, like massive. So he's down at the announcer booth and he's like, hey, just so you know, like Adrian's going to be coming in soon. Like you got a big lead all of a sudden. And then he turns the corner and it's the Brooks kid of JP. And even the announcer's like, sorry, in the time that I took to get here. And I haven't looked at JP's splits, but that guy crushed it.
Mhm.
Right. And so I think that's much more the model if you're trying to be successful in the marathon is shoot your shot at 35K, 37K. Don't shoot your shot at 5K, 10K, 12K. And, we saw, unfortunately, this happens at every race, but lots of dropouts, like on the women's side and the men's side after 30K. Where it's
Mhm.
like people were just cooked. And now I think the loop course adds to that, where when you're like cooked on a loop course, you're like, I got to do that again or like two more times or whatever, right? So for sure. But it was an easy decision to go 212. Like if you're in 210 high shape, 211 shape, you'll be able to go at 35K,
Mhm.
32K. If you're not in that shape, starting out at that isn't going to make you get there any better. So super easy. Now, are there times where you have to do it? Yeah, absolutely. Like if it's an Olympic year and this is the last race, like I think back to like Dylan Wykes getting ready for 2012 in London, and he did like 4 marathons. You have to go out on pace. You got to be right there, right? You can't be 2 minutes off, right? And go after it. But for most people, and especially all these guys, like they already had OTQs. Like anybody in the 210, 212 group already had an OTQ, right? For Americans, I should say. There was some other internationals there. But I just look at it and go, easy decision, start slower. Like, it's not like Tom was like, oh, I'm going to jog 220 and kick it down. Like, no, like we were on a good, honest pace that we had trained for. But if you're going to have a day, it's going to be in the last 10K, not in the first 25.
Well, and as you said, like that 210 group splintered.
All right.
So I guess, Tom, maybe you can walk us through the first 30 kilometers of the race. How are you feeling?
Yeah, yeah, I know. I was really wasn't sure how I would feel in the first couple K. I think, it's hard to know like how you're gonna feel because like people talk about, taper tantrums and my sleep had been sort of like up and down for like a week, and so you're just like, did I get enough sleep? Am I sort of rested, recovered? Is my HRV good? At the end of the day, you get to the start line, it's like doesn't matter, you still have to race. Honestly, I wish my caffeine and coffee in the morning had hit a little harder. It did not, and I'd even tapered, in terms of like my caffeine content leading into the race the last like several days. So, yeah, like little unexpected things like that that you're looking forward to just sometimes just don't come. But yeah, beautiful day started out, and it was nice that you weren't like so crammed in. You weren't having to throw elbows just to like own your space. And then people naturally found their groups. And yeah, the 212 pacer was very calm. He was right on pace. We were able to sort of like tuck in, and quickly I realized some of the guys around me were like very, very diligent with the tangents. And so I was like, okay, well, like, I should probably like follow that. And yeah, then we were just like clicking off Ks, and I was like, this is remarkably easy. I remember like giving you guys the okay
Yeah.
and just like
Like,
thumbs
looks like
up.
this.
Yeah. But it was just, yeah, it was too easy. I was like, there's no way. And I was just like, okay, we're just gonna get another 5K and then another 5K and then another 5K. And then I think by the time we got to 20 I could tell the pacer guy was hurting a little bit. Which was like yeah, I guess like a little bit unfortunate. So I think about like 22K or even 21K, I started to take over. We were probably pushing a few splits that were going like just under, 307s, like 306s, even a couple 305s in there. So that was probably a bit dumb. And then I pushed at least a few K at like 305 from 22 to 28. And so that was probably like a dumb move. Like that I was getting a little too excited too early, but man, it's so long to wait till like 32K. And also it's like the first marathon in ages. So like I haven't run one
In a
since like
year.
yeah, yeah, 14 months previously. So I'm like, I haven't practiced that amount of discipline for that long. I also didn't expect to feel that good, but I just kept telling myself another few K, another few K. I did find it around like 30K, like 30, 32. Like it was a bit of no man's land, like where I was sort of catching some of the 210 guys, or like we'd already caught a bulk of the 210 guys from like 25 or 22K to 30K. But I was catching a few more, but it was pretty sparse at that point. Most of the spectators were starting to gravitate towards the finish line. So I found to mentally stay in it, getting towards 35K started to get a bit tough. But yeah, otherwise I was just like, just focused on running economically and relaxing and just staying hungry, but staying patient, and all the bottle grabs were perfect. So I was super stoked about that. I found every bottle I grabbed, I'd grab it, and my forward momentum would carry me forward. And I was like, diligently thinking about little things like sipping it for at least 800 meters a K. So, yeah, I don't know, it just all sort of like clicked together. I honestly couldn't have asked for a better race. Like one small thing to learn from, but um, yeah, the race experience was great when the gun went.
And Brant, for you as the coach, what was it like being able to see Tom every 4.5 miles or so in the looped nature of this course?
Yeah, I don't know if it was better or worse, honestly. Like I talked about this in the last episode. Like coaching sucks on race day because it's like, in the build we can communicate, we can adjust. I can, pretend like I have some ounce of control over the outcome, even though I never do. But like on race day, there's like zero control, right? So, we saw them early. I had splits. I was doing the math, and I was like, okay, they're up a bit, but it was like a second a K. Like it wasn't like anything crazy. Went through halfway on 2:11:36 pace or something like that. So I think we were like a second a K up. Um, and so it was great because I could see and check in. And I know you were around, I think after 10K, you had finished your jog and we were together for the rest of the race. But I could tell, I was like, he's on, like, no concerns, we're ready to go. So it was good and bad, right? Because you're like doing the math and you're cheering for him and you're seeing him like catch people and people blow up and all these things. And so it's like really exciting to be on that course. Like a lot of the times, well, Philly I've biked, Toronto I've biked, so I've seen you quite a bit there too. But it's different when you're on the bike because like you're not at specific mile markers getting splits all the time, and you're navigating the cities and the crowds. Like you're focused on a lot of things. Versus this, it was just like for the first like I think 15 miles, I could just walk to each split and be like, okay, he's on, okay, he's on, okay, he's on. And then after I think about 30K, we kind of hung out at the junction point, the T, I think they called it. And so it was like, all right, round and round we go. Hope you're having fun on the merry-go-round, Tom. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, and Tom, for you, because we talked about briefly earlier those hairpin turns, as the race got later and later, people are falling off, people are either falling off their pace or dropping out. Were you paying attention and counting people back when you kind of went around those roundabouts, so to speak, to see what was happening up with the people in front of you, or were you aware of that at all?
Yeah, I don't think I drew a ton of energy from like catching people. I actually didn't really have any sort of understanding of like where I was in terms of the placing. And I think more so like later on they like there's certain guys that I knew in the race certain guys that I knew were in my group. And when it started to get really tough and I take that hairpin turn, I could see like, oh, this guy has like 100 meters into the hairpin, so therefore I'm like I'm stoked because I know that I'm gapping him by that much, and he's definitely not going to get me by the finish. So I think I drew some energy from that, but yeah, not a ton there. I think it would be nice if I feel like with how invested they are, like the marathon project itself, and like the resources that they're building year after year, I feel like they could easily have some dude who's just like you're 11 like on a whiteboard or something like that and like you're 10 or like you're like plus 30 second like stuff like that. I think would be huge. Because I would say like there was K markers at like the most random ass places. Like it was like 38K and like 31K, and I was just like, I don't know what this means.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're also giving me mile markers, and it's just like I passed that 30K marker that they had on the course like several times on the same loop. Like I passed it in the first lap, so I'm just like almost like desensitized to seeing these things too. So it would be, yeah, it would be great like if I go back to like make more meaning of that or write down the splits that I should be hitting at certain markers. And I probably should do that, but yeah, regardless, I think that was like all I was sort of taking away from markers or people around me.
And another question I have, because you mentioned at some point, or for most people, the marathon starts to get hard, right? It doesn't feel cruisy and easy for all 42.2K. So for you, when maybe that little bit of discomfort did begin to set in, how did you like stay focused and engage in the process and like finishing as strong as possible? Like what was going through your head at that time?
Yeah, no, I think you need to have like some sort of like changing stimulus, or like you just need to have people to race. So I think my best races I've had people that I can race against to kind of feel like that that gamer's sensation. Like now it's time to turn it up and like beat this guy. I didn't really feel that because there was no one really around me. There wasn't like insane crowds. I wasn't seeing like Brant at 40K or like I wasn't seeing like my parents on the course or something like that. So it's like I think I respond really well from like big highs and like happy emotions, or like I also respond really well to like fear and like toxic emotions. So I didn't really have, I was kind of like this in between ground where I was like, my brain was just like a little bit tired. And yeah, I'd say about 37K, it was like, okay, time to really like hold the pace. And I was trying to drive, really focus on mechanics and just be tough. But I think it was a little it was tougher at that point to make that meaningfully change towards running like 310s per K, and it ended up being more like 312, 315s, and even like a 318 and 320. So that's where I lost like the bulk of my time for sure. But I honestly like I think Brant, you'd called that out, like better pacing up to 35K and being patient to 35K, that would have been a totally different story. And I think I could have got like under 212. So just learning for next time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we
so I think
saw
if
you.
you were on 212 or oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, no, you go.
Yeah, I was just gonna say if you were on like 211.50, 212 pace, I think through 32, 33K, it would have been much easier to like either hold it or pick it up. Um, like there is a cumulative like fatigue that comes like because you're pushing a line, right? Like and you're up against it or right at it. I think especially in a race where, and this is no discredit to the organizers, like they did an amazing job, but where it's thin in that 210 to 2 or sorry 211 to 212 range, where you're not racing anybody, right? Like if I think back to Marathon Project, like you were racing the whole basically the whole last 7 8K or sorry 13.1, you were racing basically the whole last 5 7K. It's a little bit harder, but the pacing, the other thing, like we talked about this at the top about adjusting the start time, is it got pretty hot in the last 15 20 minutes of the race, relative to what it was at the start, obviously. And so I think the race starting 15 minutes earlier, and I know they're moving the race up a week or two, I think, earlier in the year. So they might do that, like with the minutes of daylight. I think that might be part of it. I don't know. But all those things come together, and this is why it's such a fine line, and why we moved to the marathon really early, because if we're going to go after, trying to make an Olympic team or something for 2028 or beyond, all these lessons learned. So when we're in a very big, high stakes environment, like our version of Olympic trials or a last chance qualifier or something, it's like we've learned this lesson before. We kind of know what we need to do. But I think that's the growing pains of trying to be elite at an event that requires discipline and patience.
So let's fast forward to the finishing shoot because we saw you with one lap to go. So as Brant said, we were at that T in the Hoka cheer zone where you have to go out one more time and we're like, hey, we saw you. We're gonna head to the finish line. And I don't know what you, Brant, but I felt this like lack of control. We're like, we've seen him for the last time, and now we have to sit around and wait for 4.5 miles, and anything can happen in those 4.5 miles. So we go to the finish line, and I'm sweating and stressing. He's like, "Why are you sweating? You're not the athlete, and you're not the coach." I'm like, "Because I care, and I'm freaking out." So, Tom, for you, like, what went through your mind when you crossed the finish line?
Yeah, I'd say like things were pretty within my control. I didn't know when, the piano was gonna fall and fall on my back and I'd have to, carry it over the finish line. And so I was really trying to like push that off as long as possible. Just again, still being like newer to the event. You don't know when that's gonna really hit. So I think, yeah, definitely I was in quite a bit of pain, but I kind of like almost had like a winner's sort of finish in the way I was like celebrating because I was just so excited, like arms out and everything like that, and I just like couldn't believe we'd finally got there. It almost seemed like so much of the race was so easy. I guess that just speaks to fitness and maybe a small bit of talent, but it felt easy to get to that point. I almost didn't feel like is this real? Like, and so I'm still like sort of like thinking like, man, like 212, am I happy with that? Like, could have been better? Like, um, you're almost like, oh, maybe I should have that should have been harder for me to get that final reward. And so I think that was just like the realization. I think you captured that pretty perfectly in photos. It's just like that animation across the finish line and grabbing my head and then just like and then hugging Brant and so yeah, good time all around.
Yeah, so I'm hearing kind of like a little bit of mixed emotions. Like there's like that happiness and relief of crossing the finish line. As you said, you were hurting for a little bit. So like to cross a finish line, I feel like we can never take those finish lines or start lines for granted, right? So you're crossing the finish line. There's happiness, there's relief, there's maybe even disbelief. You're like, oh my gosh, seeing 212 on the clock. But then being the competitive person you are, you're like, should it have felt harder to get this time? Could I have done things differently? Could I have, done XYZ to get, a couple seconds or whatever? Brant, for you, like we stood at that finish line for a while waiting for Tom, because as I said, we saw him with 1 lap to go. We had 4.5 miles of us just counting down the minutes. Um, so how did you feel? Like what were your nerves or emotions like waiting at the finish line for him to cross?
Yeah, it was kind of more so excitement at that point. Like, seeing him at 4 miles, knowing roughly the split he was on, like you could see he was hurting a little bit, but Tom typically doesn't like die. So I knew, okay, this is gonna be pretty good. And I remember, with 4 miles to go, us going down, and I was like, he might run in the 2:11s, like as we were walking down from the tee to the finish line. And so it was just really like excitement and almost relief for him, because I know he's like chased this and he's trying to make a big go at it. So it was like he's going to get something that's representative of the work he's put in and everything he's tried to do. So it was just exciting. And I think as I've gotten older as a coach, I try to just like lock into those moments a little bit and enjoy them. Like as a younger coach, I remember like winning, OUAs or have athletes win U Sports or national titles or something. You're like, sweet, that's awesome, celebrate. Oh, got to go to the next athlete or the next meet or something like that. And I think now at this stage in my career, it's like, man, I just want to sit and enjoy this with them, right? Like it was like I get to give him a hug, we get to talk about it, and see all these really cool things that are happening for him. So for me, it was just like a lot of excitement and relief that he got something, because man, the marathon is fickle. Like if you look at like when we were there standing watching the start line, how many people, or even like with a lap to go, how many elites on the men and women's side we saw dropping out with a lap to go, right? And no like disrespect to them, it happens in the marathon no matter what the race is, but you need a lot to go right. And it was like, okay, things are going right. This is good. We can be excited and we can enjoy it. So relief in that capacity quite a bit. And then excitement, obviously, to, see him run 2:12. Because, I had thought about this. I don't know if I'd share this with either of you two. Going into this, like, we're doing this like YouTube series, we're breaking down the training stuff. It's like, what if we look like giant idiots after doing this, right? It's like, and I don't want to put Nobbs out there and then like put pressure on him and stuff. And so, tried to keep it relatively low key and like promo hype the crap out of it. But I think the way we did it and the way you raced was exactly kind of our style. It's just like put our head down, do work, and trust the process that things are going to go well. And thus far, every time we've done it, we've been proved correct.
So I'm going to ask a question, and I'm going to start with Tom, but then Brant, I'll get you to answer the same one. 2025 has been quite a year for you, Tom. I think you've set PRs now in the marathon, the half marathon, the 10K. It's been a hell of a year. So what has this meant for you, like 2025 in totality, for your development, for your confidence, for just all of that?
Yeah. No, I think it's been a year just reaffirming the path that you're on. I think if this was a bad year, maybe if this is a bad year and then you stack like a few more bad years, and that's sort of like, oh, do I continue to do this? And I'd say like realistically, like you're in this very like protected little world when you're in college, and it's a bit of no man's land to navigate. Like fortunately, I have Brand as a mentor and coach throughout those years, and otherwise I definitely would have gone crazy or done like a ton of really dumb stupid shit. So I think that no man's land in between college and now can go pretty poorly for a lot of people. So I think for it to have continued to build on previous successes, and get to where I am now, like that's very reaffirming we're on the right path, and there's a lot more in store. Like I've not had perfect training weeks. Work and life is stressful and is very up and down sometimes, and so it's almost like reaffirming that I should go more all in on this. And then as a result of that, I almost can guarantee to myself that better results will come from, minimizing stress, allocating more time to training, maybe even doing some weight training instead of like 20 minutes of core like twice a week or something like that. So, um, little things like that are very exciting. And I think fuel the fire for, the next bit. But yeah, definitely a really fun year. So yeah, it's been awesome.
Same question for you, Brant. Like seeing Tom make these jumps, achieve these goals, like he mentioned earlier, trying to get that sub 64. It sounds like it's been like that little bit of a monkey on his back for a bit. So seeing his progression and the growth that he's made and the times that have followed as a result of that, what has that meant for you as his coach?
It's just been like fun, really. Like honestly, I've been quote unquote out of the high performance world for a couple of years now, and kind of coaching Tom, and you're chasing on the high performance world and such. But outside of that, I haven't done much of it, and so to be back in it and kind of seeing how fun it is for the athlete. And I think I said this to you, Elaina, when we first started working together. I've probably said it to Tom too, but my job when somebody asks me to coach them is like to take their dream in terms of what they're trying to do and make it a reality. And that requires the athlete to trust me a lot. It means I have to show up to the best of my capabilities for them. And so to be able to have this relationship with Tom and be able to help him, get closer and closer. Like it feels like every couple of months we're like, okay, we're getting closer now. We're getting closer now. We're getting closer. And so that's a lot of fun to be a part of. It's a lot of fun to watch. And I think, I grew up in this like amazing era of distance running, like reintroduction of a high performance era of distance running in the marathon with like Reed Coulsett and Dylan Wykes and, Eric Gillis, and seeing what those guys did, and now being able to like see it up close. Like I watched those guys as a fan growing up. And now being able to, hopefully help someone be part of this next crop, right? Like I was talking to Rory on the sidelines, during your run the day before, and talking about how cool it is to see guys like him and Cam obviously doing what they're doing, but then seeing the guys coming up behind, like the Toms, if we want to refer to them as that, because there's like 4 of you in the marathon. But all of you guys coming up and seeing this cool era of men in particular distance running in Canada at the marathon, and just being able to be a part of it and help Tom chase his goals. So it's just like it's exciting and fun, and it never gets old. I'll tell you that much.
I think maybe one or both of you have maybe loosely touched upon this earlier in the conversation, but taking that jump from 2:15 to 2:12, what opportunities or doors do you think this opens in terms of getting into different races, or even just planning out what's next? And maybe Tom, I'll start with you, and then Brant, if you want to chime in, you can.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're sort of on the bubble. Actually, I think if you were to have run this time 1 year ago, you would be like within the range for most of the or a lot of the majors, and some of the sub major marathons, to be like an elite and get support and appearance fees and stuff like that. But I think in this space, it does open some doors. Like, if I wanted to do Ottawa, and there's probably some support that they could provide there just for racing the marathon. And then I think just for maybe some races like a Houston or different things like that, you might get a bit better treatment and things like that. So it just makes it a bit more realistic to um, go after some bigger marathons and have that support to go for those. So it's not totally out on a limb, me supporting myself and all that stuff. But I'd say mostly from a confidence standpoint, I think I take a ton away from this, like knowing that this is like this is a pace where this is like my eco mode. Like I can just sustain this, and know that that's sort of like a guarantee I can hold this sort of fitness, this sort of pace. I'd say that's like probably the biggest takeaway. And then hopefully it gets me into some bigger races to come. So yeah.
Anything you wanted to add to that, Brant?
No, I think we'll find out how much it helps as we start
Yeah.
reaching out to races and such. But I think if anything, I used to talk about this with a group in Kingston when we had like high schoolers and collegiates and post collegiates, where you get this belief effect now. Like before, you're kind of like chasing a dream, and obviously you're still chasing, a big dream. But it's like I don't know, this is a bad analogy, but it's kind of like video games. You collect points along the way, or token, whatever the heck. I don't play video games, obviously, by my lack of language, but I think for somebody like Tom now, it's like this belief. It's like, oh, I do belong here. Oh, I can do this. Oh, I can get into these races. I can race with these guys. And so I think that's the biggest piece that we'll take away from this. Like obviously the 212 is great. Hopefully, I mean, it'll help with anything in Canada for sure, getting top notch stuff. But I think internationally, it's always tricky. You never know what you're going to get. Depends on who's doing what the year is. Like I remember when you could make worlds with like 2:15, 2:16, and now we're like, I think we looked at the world standard that it's like 2:06:30 plus the quota. So it's like, okay, well, we're not doing that next year. So I think just getting into races if we can, and whatever it is, I'm confident like we're at a level now where we can get into races that are meaningful enough for us to continue to make jumps. It might not be the top of the top races that we want to get into, but I think there's plenty of options now where we can actually get some support. I think you look at a race that was as deep as the marathon project, and to be 11th and run 2:12, 27 there, that helps on a resume. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens in 26.
Um, and I know we covered this a little bit at the start of the podcast, but like, Tom, what would you say to people that are maybe potentially considering racing the marathon project next year, whether that's the gold wave, whether that's the professional wave? As we know, this was the first year since 2020 that the marathon project was put on. In 2020, it was pro athlete by invitation only. Then 5 years later, they brought it back. They've already announced the dates for 2026. So what would you say to people that are considering running this race?
Yeah, I'd say for elites that are probably if they have a half marathon time, that puts them or like or they have, if they have a marathon time that kind of indicates they're, anywhere from like 2:12 to 2:18. I think it's like a really great opportunity in particular, especially if you're trying to make a jump by at least a minute. I think like obviously a flat and fast course means you will run faster, but it also just minimizes the potential for error. Like the slightest pace change on a hillier course means that it's much more severe on your body, physiologically. And so I think even just having a very controlled course, very controlled environment, I think is huge for people to bank on in a year when global warming was absolutely messed and so many races were way hotter than this one. So I think elites can definitely bank on that. Sub elites or like the gold wave, I do think that race got a little hot for people running over 2 hours 40, 2.5 hours. So it is something to probably be mindful of. But it's also in a nice time of year where it's like, hey, if you need a backup marathon where something went bad in the spring, something went bad at like a Berlin, it's like if you registered for that Gold Wave Marathon earlier in the year, you have that as a backup. We were like, okay, I know I can rely on this to run fast if I need to. Um, so I think that's really good for people and something that people could maybe just keep in the back of their mind as like an option for future years.
Anything that you wanted to add to that, Brant, at all?
Yeah, I think like you had an entry for the gold wave, Tom, in the pro race, so I got to see kind of both sides of it. And I think on the gold side, it is fairly expensive, but like great bag, great swag, the option to get shoes, like personal bottles, like it is a bit more than some of the other races that are in a Boston and New York. I think it was roughly in that price range, give or take, for a Canadian dollar at least for us converting it. But um, they did a really good job with making sure that there was value, I think, for the dollars. That wasn't just the course and being able to run fast. And I think the organization was top notch. Like literally, like we didn't stay at the site hotel in the Sheraton. We were like a mile away, but you had like your race, your expo, tech meeting, meet hotel, all within like a 5 mile radius for a
Yeah.
marathon.
And
Like it was insane, right? Like it was insane in a good way, to be clear.
I would almost argue, Brant, that like the cost of entry was maybe a little higher than some races, but if you were to average out what the cost of travel and accommodation is for a big marathon weekend, it
Mhm.
might be like a little less overall. But if they shift if they shift the weekend to a weekend or two earlier, where it's not as close to Christmas, that would be really ideal. So I'm all in
Yeah.
favor of that.
Yeah. And like it's what, 20-minute drive to the Phoenix airport, I think we did, right? You fly into
Mm.
Phoenix, big international airport, Sky Harbor, get the rental car, drive over. Like in terms of logistical, like if you were an athlete who was excuse me, traveling by yourself, which is sometimes hard to do to majors, super easy to do. No problems. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have covered a lot today. Tom, I'm going to ask you first. Is there anything we didn't talk about that you wanted to make sure we mentioned on this call?
No, well, I think if you're listening to this and you don't have a coach, I just have to say that the lengths of um yeah, like the depth of, support, communication, creativity, nuance, genius that Brand has put into not just this marathon build, but like the whole setup is incredible. I think yeah, I've pestered him with many, 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 many questions, and he's come up with things that I didn't think would happen in a marathon, and it's always been fun and nuance. So I have to say again, thanks to Brandon. If you're an athlete out there, I definitely recommend you work or reach out to Brant, or either of you. I
Or
know
me.
I know for, yeah,
Or yeah.
I know for a fact there's a cropping of elites that are like sitting in that 215 to 220 range. I know many of them personally that are doing some self-coached crap, and I know it's crap because they'll have one good race and then like 10 bad races. And I know that they would benefit from some coaching. So that's one thing I'd like to add there too.
Appreciate that.
Brant, anything that you wanted to add? Anything about the race, Tom's performance in particular? Anything that we didn't cover in this conversation that you wanted to make sure got some airtime?
Uh, no, I think it's just, I think everybody out there, whether you're somebody who's trying to chase the Olympic dream or run a PR or qualify for Boston, like whatever your goals might be, it's absolutely worthwhile to chase them. It is 1,000% worthwhile to go as all in as your life allows. Obviously, people have family, jobs, etc., commitments, but uh, yeah, I've talked to a lot of elite people across different domains, a lot of age groupers across different domains who have different lives and such. Nobody 5 years after is like, oh man, I didn't hit my goal, but like I'm really mad that I went all in.
Mm.
And again, whatever all in means, like all in doesn't have to mean 220K a week like Tom and doing that. And so I would just encourage anybody, like if you've got goals, build a support team and a network, your spouse, your family, coaches, whoever it is, to do that. And I think it's you'll learn so much about yourself and you become such a better human all around that it's 1,000% worthwhile. And I'd encourage everybody to do it. And then the last piece I would add in is it's been really cool like doing this series. Like I'm not a social media person. Like Elaina legit has my social media. If you see me anything new on there, it's Elaina. I suck. It goes all the way back for years. So
We vet.
this has been it. What's that?
I said we vet some things. You're not allowed to post for
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah, yeah. But it's been cool to do this and see it. And the other thing that I'm really getting excited about and fun is watching you two, a couple of the other athletes that have been on the podcast, like have me build out this coaching tree, to see you guys all crushing it and what this kind of stuff means for you guys to be able to showcase what it is you do. And it's always been part of my ethos to try to make running a better place than it was when I started. It was one of the things Steve said to me early on. And I think being able to share and showcase this stuff like good best practices, not just like influencer shilled crap all over social media, and be able to see you guys continue that on and stuff is pretty fun. So it's been a cool year. Actually, we're recording this on December 31st. So thanks to both of you for a epic year. And I don't know what we're going to do in 26 in terms of the podcast and series and Tom racing and such, but I'm sure it'll be just as exciting and fun as 25 has been.
And I'm sure it will not be the last time that we have the two of you on to break down training or races. So it seems to be pretty fun, pretty popular. People are invested and interested in your dynamic and what you guys are doing. So I'm sure we'll cook up some fun things for 2026.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks, guys. Happy New Year.
Thanks. Chat
Bye.
soon.